We made it, everybody. Greetings and welcome. Welcome back to Patch Day. We made it to a new patch day. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. He's Kyle Fergusson. And we get to put on our patch analyzing pants. Is it a pants hat? Is it a jaunty a pin like you would collect at maybe a themed park of some sort?
All the badges we've survived from previous patches? Is that kind of what you're going for?
Oh, do you have your you helped an Abathur across the street patch? Is that something
there
you
you go?
You got your like your sash and they're all sewn on.
Exactly.
Or maybe,
I'm more of a vest kind of guy. Yeah, jean vest. Let's do that.
Okay. Or eventually your mom was like, "Listen, honey, you got too many of these. I'm not going to sew them all on. Here's some fabric glue. You figure it out."
Or you just start putting them in the glass box and they make sure they're safe. You don't get frayed out there. People got to know you learned to swim in 1992. It matters.
Was that actually when you learned how to swim? I have no idea what year I learned to swim.
Yeah, that's probably about when I actually could swim for real, like by myself and not just Spider-Man along the wall. But Patch Day. Patch Day is here. I'm really excited about it. This is a very crunchy but interesting patch. There's lots of little moving pieces and NGS in full swing at the moment for us. So I'm eating this up. We've changed some strategies last night. Ran some Lilies. Won our games on that. Very exciting stuff.
That's awesome, man. And I think that's exactly who this patch is directed at, are the drafters of the world, because it is number crunchy as all hell. It feels like a direct sequel to the last patch that we got.
I feel you there. It's touching a lot of different heroes, but maybe not necessarily those that people will find meta. Some of the problems are just lying in that we're not in a meta that these heroes would matter in if they were buffed or nerfed. And other ones are receiving older treatments and older philosophies, like the updates to talents so you get a reward now rather than waiting for your next cast or waiting around for that next cast. So I'm pretty comfortable saying that this is a previous balance designer project, and we haven't quite seen the influence of the new folk.
Yeah, which they didn't. There was nothing in the dev comments to say whether or not this was like AZ Jackson's last thing out the door. The language in the dev comments, as you're going to hear if you haven't read them, because we're gonna pull from quite a bit of them, it sure sounds like the old AZ Jackson comments. Yeah, that's how they read.
Maybe they have, a company philosophy to have a certain tone in there. I'm not sure, but yeah, pretty spot on in the language.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was interesting, because I was almost more excited to see if we were going to get like an introduction to the new balance designer or not than I was the patch itself. Like almost. But we didn't get that. Don't know who it is. Don't know how involved or not involved they were with this. But what we do know is how the game is changing, which is what that's going to be the main focus of today. We're going to do a deep dive into this patch. But before we do that, we just want to say thank you to everybody who is supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. If you like what we're doing here on Into the Nexus, we are an independent program. We are not funded by anyone in particular other than our wonderful patrons who support us over at patreon.com/ITN. So go check it out. You get some perks like access to our Discord, signups for our monthly game nights. Those are always fun. We did quite well. We did quite well last time, Kyle.
We did. And once again, it's worth advertising that Discord there. It's awesome seeing it burst to life with a patch, everyone experimenting, new ideas, trying out things, finding bugs. But please join us over at patreon.com/ITN.
Oh, and we are receiving confirmation in the chat room as we speak, Kyle, that this is very much a new guard patch.
Oh. Ooh.
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing that I would possibly say would have hinted at that was the way they formatted a Tracer talent update with slashes. Honestly, beyond that, I have no idea what's different about this.
Okay, yeah, because this, like I said, to me, I did a once-over on this, and I was like, feels like the last patch to me. Very number crunchy, very technical.
Now, of course, you're in a small team. You hang out a lot together. You start talking the same. So maybe we shouldn't read into the language. We all pick up things.
Is this like how I've started saying butts after hanging out with you?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. That clearly is what it must be then. And also,
so what are we gonna do? Nerf Sonya. They all say together accidentally, and they go, "Oh," and they all smile at each other.
Jinx, buy me a Coke.
Yeah, no Sonya nerf, by the way. It's fine. Which I'm very happy about because that needs time to spread. Yeah, people should enjoy that right now. I do want to have one big caveat at the top here, though. One public service announcement. Let's ignore bugs today, because at this point, Blizzard, Heroes of the Storm devs have shown that they're able to update and fix those bugs very quickly by the end of the week. So on previous balance patches, there have been some issues, and there certainly are those. Right now, Tyrael is wrongfully exploding on non-hero targets and getting benefits from it. Falstad is stacking on non-hero targets for his quests. Mephisto is casting Endurance of Hate slightly faster than he should. Those are the bugs. Be aware of them. If you're going to play in the next 48 hours, that's why they're banned or being picked. But that's my final mention of it, because I'm really, really happy with their turnaround on these bug fixes, and I don't want to harp on them into the future.
That's fair. They're still here in a week. We'll dive into it, but we'll see what happens. But speaking of diving into it, Kyle, let's dive into it. Let's take a look at this patch. And first up is the Lord of Terror, him or herself, depending on what skin you're using, Diablo. Diablo is getting some changes, according to devs. That they say that they're happy with the Lord of Tailors. Yes, the Lord of Tailoring. I love it. I love going there. They really make my suits fit well. They're happy that the Lord of Terror's ability to wage wanton destruction, but they think he should do so at greater risk to himself. And so they went and hit his survivability. And I like the note in here. They say these hits to his survivability may be too heavy-handed, and then go on to say, yeah, we'll deal with that if that is the case.
Yeah, that's a nice little nod that we're trying to address an issue, and it is a very particular issue. This is Feast on Fear healing and Life Leech basic attacks heal Diablo, which I'm sure just about everyone's familiar with. That one Diablo who's wailing on something somewhere, and they just keep living, and that person doesn't know to kite or blind or what have you, and Diablo lives through the entire team fight. That is a very Storm League-y problem. So this nerf to Diablo, some might consider a buff to Diablo, so people stop picking bad talents. Grr. That's not true. This has been an amazing build for a very long time. Auto attack Diablo has been rocking. But in a more focused environment where people know how to counter it, there is a very, very slight buff. 17 to 30 damage on Hellfire at 13 to the W build. This would be your Flame Stomp build, which usually goes into things like Lightning Breath, which is overall a little more reliable in coordinated play, and probably where Diablo should be looking now.
Yeah, and we're gonna see this as well too. This kind of like sculpting play or talent decisions. I think a little more heavy-handed, right? Especially when we get down to Falstad, because there's just like losing bribe in that case. So that's gonna change some play styles there. Do you like that as a philosophical question, Kyle? Like, do you mind? Like, not that it's happening everywhere. I can think of Diablo and Falstad as like really the only two examples of it in this patch. But do you like when there's some like heavy-handed changes that kind of force us to either build or play a different way?
Sure, why not? This is perfectly fine, and I like that they're willing to adjust the balance should this now be unfun. My really only concern is that Diablo's seeing limited play at the moment because there are so many bruisers and other heroes that are starting to fill that role. Blinders with May able to blind longer, I think it was in the previous patch. We're just seeing them react to Diablo. And nerfing Sacrificial Soul here is also a little strange. So clearly there is an issue they're trying to address.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not sure. This is one of those cases where I would have liked to have seen some internal statistics, because what we see at home, in hot slogs and whatnot, Diablo's always been a little on the low end. He's just a volatile hero. It takes, as you said, a little more for the coordinated environment, and right now, just not seeing a ton of them. So,
and if we look at our stats from home, like Hot's logs, we see near 80% pick rate on Feast on Fear and near 70% pick rate on Life Leech. So they targeted the right things. It's just interesting at the same time they decided to buff the W build where we were all sort of heading in the first place.
Yeah. We've talked about it on past episodes. But I since we're just going in order of the patch itself, Kyle, we're getting right to your meat and potatoes this exact moment. You've been talking about Mal'Ganis for multiple episodes now, and we're getting quite a few Mal'Ganis changes. According to the devs, Mal'Ganis has fallen off the list of tanks that are considered when drafting, so they did some base statistics like buffs. They also touched some performing talents, and they also took a look at time to feed and blood rush.
Okay. This is, of course, a Mal'Ganis buff. Health up. Woo! 50 points. Basic attack damage up 4 points. Fellclaw damage up 3 points. Like, all this has to be very incremental because it's the Illidan problem. All damage is healing for Mal'Ganis. The cooldown on Night Rush is down 2 seconds. Like, all this equals good stuff for a Mal'Ganis that still has all of his vulnerabilities in that he is weak to all forms of CC, and particularly those knockbacks, which means lighter CCs and roots and things that we consider not as big of deals are still a big deal to Mal'Ganis. So there might be a world where there's like a fundamental change that needs to happen. I think that some sort of CC recovery would be really fun for him, whether that's tied to his armor ability and being able to maybe kind of like Arthas does with his Icebound Fortitude. If you were to use Necrotic Embrace before the fight or at the right time, could you reduce those CCs somehow? That's all pretty heavy-handed stuff. I think they're going about it right and making sure that if you saw an opportunity to draft Mal'Ganis, he could be the right choice. And there are those in low CC teams. But that just kind of circles back onto, hey, Garrett, the enemy team has no CC. What do you want to play?
Whatever I want.
Well, let me pick off the list. Tracer and ETC. And yeah, exactly. Like down the line, there are other heroes you would consider earlier. So I love the guy. He's currently banished to love him too much and I tilt when I lose on him territory.
Yeah. That's okay. So you're in where I was thinking, which is like if you end up in that perfect scenario, we might be re-entering an era where Mal'Ganis feels really bad in the right scenario if you draft it a certain way. But yeah, as you already mentioned, it's just like, well, it's a pretty major missing of the mark in your draft if you are drafting in a way that empowers Mal'Ganis.
But a lot of this is really cool. Like the damage time or the stun time is up on Will of Tichondrius. Spreading Plagues damage is up. They did a really nice thing with Blind as a Bat that it no longer sets you on cooldown when it expires. So you can go in swiping, pop Blind as a Bat to swipe more, and then come out of it and swipe more. Like if you're doing an objective fight like Infernal Shrines or around a boss, that could be pretty reliable and awesome. Oh, you're still Mal'Ganis. And that's something that I think is a problem for another day.
That's fair. And there are a hint or two about like another day on other heroes here. Like we're getting hints on potential more reworks later on down the line. That wasn't, however, one with Mal'Ganis. So you just still avoiding him in your draft games?
Yeah, we took him last night in one of our NGS games. Cavalier Guest played him, flew all over the back line. Ultimately, that's part of his design issue. Really, really fun hero. Y'all know I love him. But when you go a swiping, everyone spreads out, which I think is a principal problem because then everyone else starts spreading out. And now you're not really tanking as we like to do it in lower coordinated environments, which is big piles of enemies, flame strike. Then you go to put people to sleep and you start flying around and you're already being kited because they already spread out for your initial go. And then you do a circle effect and everyone doesn't want to stand out or stand in it, so they all spread out again. So we we sort of run into this issue where he's just counterintuitive to what people want to aim at.
Yeah, he's like, everyone just has a sense of waiting for Mal'Ganis to use his abilities to go do something, right? Like, if everyone had that thought, like, for every tank or every hero out there, everyone would be playing pretty optimally. But there's something about Mal'Ganis, and I think the telegraphing of those swipes that you mentioned, that, like, everyone, you fought against him once, you know, to just like, oh, he's swiping, I'm gonna scatter or stay away until that's over.
I'm looking up right now real quick. It's kind of funny. There was a really weird bush talent on Mal'Ganis for a while, that if you started your night rush in a bush, I believe, you moved faster and you did more damage for a time. And that's actually how we should have been playing him probably the entire time. And now it's gone because we didn't respect it.
All right, okay. Well, hey,
I'm not saying that should come back, but that is kind of the way you should play him, as this waiting engager.
Patience, Kyle. Patience. Which again brings it back into the draft. Which, yeah, not a lot.
I'm willing to wait. It's a really, really fun style. I don't want a rework to come in and change that fundamentally.
I think that's fair. I just don't know what you would do to make him a little less punished by basically any form of crowd control.
Yeah,
that would be difficult. Therein lies the challenge there. But let's move on and talk about Muradin. The developer comments spend time kind of talking on the history of how consistent Muradin has been, and how he's just been slowly eking out, you know, better performance, and just rising. So they're doing something about it. They said sharpening Bronzebeard Rage should reduce Muradin's overall healing while allowing skillful play to earn a moment of its previous strength. And so they adjusted that functionality on Bronzebeard Rage. It now deal 15 damage per second, healing for 75% of damage dealt. Hitting an enemy hero with Stormbolt increases the damage by 200% for a 3-second window.
Which is Stormbolt directly, whereas previously it was basic attacking a hero that's been stunned, rooted, or slowed increases this damage by 100% for 3 seconds. So we find a more dangerous Muradin when the Muradin can hit his skill shots. And one of the best ways I've heard it described about Muradin is you suck at Muradin if you haven't played for a week. And if you haven't played Muradin for 2 days on top of that. He is very, very particular. That range is very, very short. And I think he'll be just fine. There is one kind of weird thing, though. And you know I like to harp on these a little bit. So, take it with a grain of salt. But the Dwarf block no longer has a duration. This is where if you did your Dwarf toss, you would get some charges of block. So you know what that means, right? We're now going to be seeing Muradin's hearth back and then the base go, whoop. Because they're going to want some charges of block for later on, you know? Why not? And so it's fine. You know,
I didn't think about that, but you're absolutely right. Like, if it no longer has a duration, you can essentially pre-pot like you would in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, it's 4 charges of block, which are incredible. That's a lot of block. And if you leap out, and if you maybe have later talents, you know, that are reducing your cooldowns and whatnot, you know, this could be a very aggressive pickup for you. But let's say you leap out and then you go heal and then you come back in with 4 charges of block. That's incredible. But there are those scenarios, of course, where now in our casted games and whatnot, we're going to be seeing a Muradin making his way through the woods and then do a little whoop.
I mean, is it the worst thing in the world?
No. There are definitely worse things that could happen.
Listen, HOTS is so, like, so straightforward and I think intuitive in ways we have spent literally years talking about, you know, no last hitting and no shops and a very reduced jungle in all the battlegrounds. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have a little bit of this kind of weird, maybe slightly less intuitive than you would think type of play, which honestly has already lived on Muradin, a hero that we have pointed to time and time again as like the poster child for why questing could be a little counterintuitive at times because you would just be spamming storm bolts. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, if it becomes like your nervous Muradin tick that you hearth back and you you toss yourself before you run, that's fine. That's fine. I'm
Get yourself motivated.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Makes you it's going to become part of the Muradin experience, Kyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the hint of a rework, Kyle. There are clues. Okay, there's a story being laid here with Tyrael. There's a lot going on here. The dev comments say that there are, quote, so many things that they want to do with Tyrael in the future, but for the time being, they wanted to add some more utility to his trait, adding some fun additions to some other underperforming talents. And so that just sounds to me like Tyrael rework in the future.
Sure.
And so let's see what they did with the trait, Archangel's Wrath. The duration was increased by half a second. It was previously 3.5. It's now up to a full 4 seconds. Damage was reduced from 550 to 450, but movement speed was increased by 20%, and they added in additional functionality that enemies within Archangel Wrath's radius deal 50% less damage. Also, enemies hit by Archangel's Wrath deal 50% less damage for 3 seconds. Afterwards. So you've exploded. Archangel's Wrath is over. Tyrael's even ghost form is no longer on the battlefield. If you got nicked by it, you are going to be putting out a lot less damage for 3 seconds afterwards.
This is in addition to his already existing trait of each enemy hero hit by this effect reduces Tyrael's death timer by 10%. So there's a lot going on Archangel's Wrath. It was always a bit of a call you had to make if you were even going to kill Tyrael in the start of a team fight or towards the end there. The damage wasn't really what you were afraid of. Back in the day, it was shielding and all sorts of talents that came with it. So this is adding back in that danger. And that's very cool for a guy who can really make his way around the battlefield. For a while, I've called him Better Genji, just because he's all over the place. Granted, of course, he can't 100 to 0 anybody. It's a bit more slow than that. The interesting thing about this update is that they went into Bound by Law, the level 4 talent, and removed the increase on Eldrun's Might Slow. And that's a really, really big hit to Tyrael. Tank Tyrael, that is. Because Tyrael brings no CC in the heavy sense. So increasing that slow allowed him to help his skill shotters hit their skill shots. Previously, it was a increase by 10%. That was just enough to have him be tank viable. And now we're seeing a Tyrael who is maybe just a backline harasser. Maybe you're running this with like a bruiser sort of situation where they're actually the tank, but the Tyrael's all over the backline. They're going to explode, deal some damage to squishies, reduce their damage on Chromie and what have you. That is an interesting place for him. And there's even a level 7 upgrade where you can increase his shield explosion damage, which can, in a environment where everyone's cool with it, allow Tyrael to do a little bit of double soaking.
Okay, let's bust out your crystal ball with me for a second.
Okay.
Maybe I should have phrased that better. Anyway, doesn't matter. They're hinting at a rework. This mini change really only hurts tank Tyrael, as you mentioned. And like the buff is to dying, which tanks tend to not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So does the rework finally just rip the Band-Aid off and stop trying to tell us that Tyrael is a tank and instead reorganize him into either bruiser or even, dare I suggest, melee assassin?
Oh, that'd be so cool. That'd be really cool to see him out there just wailing away with his sword with some damage behind it. It's tough to imagine where even sanctification would have a role in that. That'd be too bizarre for a melee assassin. Even feels a little bizarre for a bruiser. I don't know.
Yeah, but would it be bad to get like a little bit of old school specialist in with our melee assassin or bruiser? Would it be the worst thing in the world?
No, no. I think a lot of people, though, would say that there are too few tanks already. So that's not something that they're interested in.
Well, then I've got bad news for them if they look at this patch. Because that doesn't look to be where Tyrael is trending.
That's a very particular thing, the bound by law thing, though. Like that is if you're in the know sort of information and have run some Tyrael comps outside of just juice pirates in the past.
Yeah, but what isn't in the know is looking at, oh, they buffed Tyrael. Oh, but it's when he dies. That's pretty, to me, obvious. That it's like, oh, well, we're not all that concerned about making him a good tank.
I don't have an answer. I'm not sure what this update was performing along the way. It certainly inspired a lot of people to play some Tyrael. And with the current bug on him, he's up 8%. We'll see if that lasts into future weeks.
Gotcha. What is the bug? I know we didn't want to talk about it, but I actually missed the bug on Tyrael.
So it's a bit of a big deal. There's this reduce his death timer by 10% for each enemy hero he hits. It's currently working on non-heroes. So an Infernal Shrine Pit full of minions means instant Tyrael.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Yeah. That's cool, but that's oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little rough. Although, is there something there, Kyle? Could they allow that up to a maximum cooldown reduction? Or up to a maximum amount of non-heroes? Like, could you be like, you can hit 3. You can hit all of them, but it doesn't matter. Only 3 of those actually give you a bonus.
I think that it goes against what they want the Tyrael to be doing. I mean, think of the scenario, right? Like, you are fighting on Cursed Hollow, and there's a full team fight going, and the top lane collides. 20% increased movement speed goes Tyrael, makes a decision. Do I blow up on the enemy team for damage and 50% reduced damage to them? Or do I go hit that sweet lane and get back on the field? And then speeds off 20% Tyrael to go clear a lane. I don't think that's particularly fun. Might be a tactical decision, but maybe not fun for the rest of the team.
I'm definitely playing I guess Angel's advocate in this regard, Kyle. All right, let's move into Bruisers, where we're going to talk about Artanis, which, you know, as nitty gritty as this patch is, and as much as we were both kind of talking about like draft implications at the top, but I guess you also mentioned that a lot of these are not currently in the meta heroes. Right. I think Artanis definitely continues that trend. Dev said that Artanis has been finding more and more of his success by focusing on taking basic attack so they're trying to even out his choices. So Blade Dash got a buff. The damage went up, just like base damage on Blade Dash went up from 57 to 63. So that is not nothing, Kyle. The rest are talents. Any comments on Blade Dash getting a base buff?
Right, so that's his lane clear, which is kind of a big deal for Artanis, who has no lane clear. So right now, with this buff, you can do a Blade Dash across the lane, and then you don't have that extra something. It's what Yrel does. She charges her jump, lands on the lane, and then pops her heal, which damages an area. And now you're kind of in the territory, one for you, one for you, one for you, cleared the lane. And Artanis doesn't quite have that yet. He sweeps it, and then it's 2 for you, 2 for you, 2 for you, which is kind of slow still. But it's something.
Yeah. And this is
something.
And it's important to remember that he does much more damage on the backswing, right? So this is a minor increase to the already minor portion of damage coming out of Blade Dash.
But level 7 got a buff as well, and that's where I see the devs acknowledging this and saying, kind of like ETC Echo Pedal, like, we don't want necessarily Artanis to lose that weakness in the early game, but should you find yourself at level 7 still having to soak dramatically, here's Solarite Reaper with a now 175% bonus damage increase to your Blade Dash. So that's lane clear now. Now we're getting into that one swipe and one for you territory, but it's all the way to level 7.
Am I wrong to interpret that as like, that's cool for dual lane maps, but I would feel that in a standard triple lane map, you would probably figure something else out before level 7 and reorganize your offlaner?
Sure, that's where we get into a little bit of conflict of jobs, right? Like we put Artanis in the solo lane on Garden of Terror, and then he is replaced by Brightwing so he can go do camps because he's good at that. But now we have Artanis doing camps when Hogger exists, and
but Kyle, Hogger got nerfed.
Well, not enough. But
no, the dark days are over. We're free. Hogger, it's over. Clearly, Kyle.
They're not over. They're very much is still a celebration of Hogger, but that is an interesting puzzle. I think the main problem right now is ultimately that blinds just aren't needed at the moment,
or auto attack for that matter.
Yeah, we've got blinding heroes running around. Johanna, Cassius, and May are all everywhere. So we're running things like Orphea, and even our Valas are all Monster Hunter again. Like, and Vala's very rare, and Greymane even feels pretty rare. Like, we are just not in a meta that is favoring Artanis blind right now. And when it comes to Space Laser, I love that into Annas and Junkrats and people who want to kind of stand still, or Kael'thas's that really feel the power of being repositioned all the time. Junkrat, in that case, he goes for a tire. He's now locked into it and he's taking massive damage. So there's a world where Artanis comes flying back. It's just dependent on the rest of the meta. And now he'll be better when that meta hits.
That's interesting. But also, like, getting out of the draft conversation, Kyle, ARAM is really popular. Quick Match is still really popular. Played much more than Storm League. Artanis is a popular damn hero in those modes.
Sure.
So that's also this is interesting in that regard. So if you're out there quick matching or ARAM as Artanis, take note of this. And now let's talk about how clearly we will never need to worry about Hogger again, Kyle.
Right.
Because the damage on Hog Wild has been reduced from 36 to 32.
11%.
Yes. Actually, I'm being cheeky. I am glad that they finally came for Hog Wild's damage. But was it enough?
No. But this is it's called a patch. This is a patch for another day. Like, this is trying to stem the tide of Hogger in the simplest way possible while we figure out the next step. I'm nervous about future number adjustments because then we just sort of reach deleted from the game kind of territory. He needs those numbers for those camp clears that make him powerful so that he can get all the way to 20 and then cast no control. At least in the way that I've been playing him and having success. Yeah.
It seems like what makes Hogger so unique and so successful in Hog Wild is also like the key challenge to balancing this hero, right? Because like if it's gonna continue to work as it is, where if you line up correctly, it can just go infinitely and gain tons and tons of value. What do you do about that? Because as you mentioned, you either tune the damage so low that it's irrelevant, or what else do we consider? Do we consider that it cannot go infinitely when angled correctly?
It might have a set number of bounces that it can participate in before canceling.
Oh, I like that better because then at least you can still do your lane transfers if you're a ballin' Hogger.
Right, and a lot of that is rage management. So we're going to see a higher win rate Hogger the higher you go in leagues and skill. There are a lot of small things like knowing those angles so you can keep your rage up as you move between lanes, or even just the mere activity like I talked about in the previous strategy section of making sure you actually get to full rage before you go into your no control Hog Wild. And since no control, the level 20 talent, which is so scary, is a untalented version of Hog Wild, this is a nerf to that. So I'm really happy that it's slow and they're taking it in steps. And I'm really, really happy at this point in the game's life that our new hero that came out is this complicated and this interesting and this different from anything else you'd see in another MOBA.
It reminds me surprisingly of one of the most powerful Hearthstone decks in the history of that damn card game, which was the old Grim Patron Warrior. I think you were playing back then.
He said a certain thing, right?
Everyone, get
Yeah,
you know?
that's the guy.
Yeah. And there used to be a card where you could give those dudes rush and just like fill the board with them and just murder people. And so it was called Patron Warrior. Without getting into like the nitty gritty of how the deck worked, it was one of the greatest decks in the history of the game. If you knew how to play it, you were very favored to win the game. However, it was also one of the most complicated decks to pilot. And depending on matchup, things changed drastically. And so even though it was one of the highest win rate decks like in the history of the game, it took them a long time to fix it because it was so hard to pilot. A lot of people just like the win rate was abysmal if you looked at public statistics. Because so many people were going in, hearing somewhere that it was so good, but they didn't know how to execute on it. And that's how I feel about Hogger. Like a lot of people just, they listen to shows like this. They're watching streams. They're subscribed to Fan on YouTube. They're reading the Reddit. They go in, they're like, Hogger's broken. I'm going to play Hogger, but they haven't put in the time. They haven't practiced Hogger. They don't understand why Hogger works or how to extract the value from this hero. Because like my real world experience is that he's not that bad to play against. But if I played against your Hogger, it would be a rough experience.
Well, and we're also talking about opinions made in NGS where I am excused from lane to go do cams. I am given the time to get to 20. There's also just like really strange, complicated things coming from Yrel. Yrel hits her hammer in an arc, but it all pushes forward. Whereas Hogger swings his ball and chain in an arc and it pushes along that arc outward. And stuff like that can make him complicated, bouncing between heroes. So I really, really like how slow this is. And they've set themselves up for a real project on a future date.
Yeah, we're gonna, who knows, right? Like, it's something I like talking about. I like talking about Hog Wild because who knows? It's not our job. We don't actually have to figure out if it's balanced or if it kills the character, right? But that's when my brain goes, oh, it'd be interesting. Maybe I like that you mentioned potentially limiting the number of bounces and not the distance or hitting with an arbitrary amount of time.
Sure, and we can, hit the range on Hortipults, or, even if we really, really wanted to, get rid of the Unstoppable on that. Like, this isn't a Void Prison scenario where there's just not anything they can do because the skill is so binary.
That's a good analogy to draw. Well, I guess it's a good comparison to make. So yeah, we'll see where Hogger takes us. And if you're playing him, where Hogger takes you. Let's take a look at Ragnaros. They're messing with Ragnaros again. And they say in the dev comments that these changes are meant to help out weaker talents. And we saw like a lot of tweaks to Q builds. So Furious Hungers, Hand of Ragnaros, Cauterized Wounds, 1, 7, and 13. Kind of buffs across the board there. Like quest requirement reduction on Sulfurous Hungers, for example. But are we going Q build? Do we want to go Q build? Do we want to put ourselves in that situation?
This is a great balance for Ragnaros because this is a buff to his harder to play build. And we're going to see the same thing in a moment with Alexstrasza. Blast Wave is easy Ragnaros. And so it became better. And then they worked on the sort of middle build, which was the meatball build. So now there's this sort of hard to play build sitting on the side that is part of some old balance philosophies. And here's one, like Hand of Ragnaros. Previously, you would empower your Sulfurous, and if it hit 2 enemy heroes in the single slam, it would restore 10 mana and give a cooldown reduction of 2 seconds. That means in order to chain those slams, which was very, very doable in things like gold, they would have to continue to hit 2 heroes for that reward on your next hit. And then eventually you'd reach a scenario where maybe you're winning or something, and there's only 1 hero left to hit. Now you don't even have a talent, as it were. So instead, they went and updated it with, if you hit those 2 heroes, you get that mana back, but also the cooldown recharges 100% faster for 4 seconds, which means it actually goes past the point and on to the next slam, if you catch my meaning.
Doubling the duration there.
So 1 slam on 2 heroes, and then the heroes split from each other because they're in the know, means that your next slam and the slam following are still benefiting in some way from that initial slam you performed.
It's more intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's playing to what you are trying to do.
Now, I did hear an interesting story from Cavalier Guest about how Ragnaros Cauterized Wounds is horrible, because actually Resilient Flame is what you want for the 40 armor, and that's how Rag is played in any sort of competitive environment. Basically, you would early pick Rag back in the day and then be like, uh-oh, guess you can't take any stuns because I'll be invincible, enemy team. And so Cauterized Wounds is now trying to make up for that fact that Resilient Flame is so good, but we're not really reaching that point. So the full Q build isn't really in need of investment, but you can now, as it's better, sprinkle it into maybe a Blast Wave build you were already doing.
Did we just get spoiled by some pretty crazy balance patches, like with some pretty wild number adjustments and reworks for a while there? Is that what it is? Like, because I look at Cauterized Wounds and I go, yeah, okay, healing has been increasing 40 to 45%. Like, I move right past this when I'm reading through patch notes. Like, that does not even register on my radar for an underpicked talent that has a pretty bad win rate.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
It's not horribly underpicked, though, interestingly enough. It is somewhat, 13 is a somewhat competitive tier.
No, and it's a talent that feels good. You just have to be cautious about when other talents would just be way, way better than that. And there's this cool thing about the Meteor Bomb dealing more damage if it explodes near the center. Like, that sort of talent at 16, no less, is really, really hard to do. I have a very hard time even using that one. So I'm going to go Blast Echo or Giant Scorcher regardless of what build I'm doing, just because I'm so bad at aiming that Meteor Bomb. So there is stuff in here. I see what you mean, though. Like, there was a riskiness of like mid 2020 patches that were really fun to see. I think the meta is currently healthy, though. There's two different factions in the hero scene right now. Oh my God, change the meta, I'm bored. And ooh, this is the best meta we've had in a really long time. And it is stable. And you can get away with a lot of cool picks. So I'm happy to see these more incremental changes for now.
I think I fall more in the other camp.
Sure. Blow it all up.
I want to ride in the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I don't know. Like, I don't know. A couple more, I think. This patch very much, like, not my flavor. Right? Like,
sure.
None of these are heroes that I have a strong, like, kinship with. These are not heroes I play. But at the same time, I was kind of going through it looking. I'm like, well, what is the sexy, trendy pick coming out of this? And I don't think there is one.
I think there is.
Is it Mal'Ganis? Because
no,
that doesn't surprise me.
No. It's Lily. It's Lily.
Oh, yeah. That is the one I'm the most excited about. But, oh boy, it's subtle, in my opinion, still.
Well, let's tackle Alexstrasza here, because it's very much along the lines of this Ragnaros update.
Yeah, we had a big chat about Alexstrasza last week with Not Paradox. So if you missed that, everybody should go listen to it. But none of what we talked about came to fruition in these changes here. So Dev said that while their Dragon Queen's talent tree is in a pretty healthy spot, they thought there were some outliers that could be improved. So they said on the opposite side of that, Draconic Discipline was slightly stronger than they would like. So they removed a second from the duration increase. That's why you're seeing that there, even though I think public opinion, and certainly our opinion, if you listen to last week's episode, is that Alexstrasza is not in the best place. And yet we're seeing a second shaved off Draconic Discipline. But yeah, I mean, that's what they're going with. They're messing with some outlying talents. You know, Live and Let Live is getting the cooldown recharge increased on Gift of Life, and you don't need to collect as many globes if you take Circle of Life at 1.
Well, I do think that Draconic Discipline needed a nerf. This is a 65% win rate or pick rate talent, and definitely dwarfs the other ones, and is all part of the Ancient Flames build, which once again was applied awfully to my face this week. And it's just, you have to experience it once. Like, when you lose a game and you clearly know that you weren't hitting the core, and you just go, okay, never again. That's what losing to Flames of Fury Alexstrasza feels like. Have you ever faced that?
I'm sure I have, but if you asked me when, I couldn't tell you. I have no memory.
So what happens is the talent build goes in such a way that Alexstrasza is applying Flame Buffet throughout the game to reduce her Dragon Queen cooldown when she turns into a big dragon. She gets a 50% slow that no longer decays on that. And then level 7 Fire Within. She heals for 10% of her max health every time she hits a hero with the Flame Buffet debuff already on them, because you got to hit twice for Alexstrasza's stuff to work.
Yeah, and the whole point of Flames of Fury is like you're not getting that Dragon Queen cooldown reduction unless you finish that quest to begin with.
But then come level 20, when you're a Dragon Queen, your auto attack, in the big old cone becomes a Flame Buffet. So you have infinite dragons, infinite slows. You're healing yourself for splash damage that heals you for 10% of your max health per go. This is so insanely destructive and amazing that they're trying to sort of move you away from that here. And that's their goal. Now, with this buff, they did create an Alexstrasza who, with Life Blossom, this is the one that always looks like a lamprey mouth to me. I know it's a flower, but I always see a lamprey.
You're not wrong.
Every single time. I'm like, what is this? She's infested. Oh my God. This is the one where if you heal somebody, you drop a flower. And you can go pick up said flower and your next Life Blossom won't cost you any health. That's a really big deal in a game where people are going to help you. You kind of have to play into it. You have to be like, Alexstrasza, I need a heal. And she'll be like, yes, come to me first. So I will be in range of said flower. People need to interact with it and help Alexstrasza get that flower. So that build just got really, really good.
The one where you need to depend on other people.
Yes. The one where everyone has to kind of know how to play with Alexstrasza.
Okay.
So the healing throughput there is amazing, and it's not required to, do crazy abundance circles and everything we kind of talked about for half a year now about how we would change Alexstrasza.
I'm gonna continue bombarding you with questions here.
Okay.
Is that too much dependence on other people? Is there a line on how much you can depend on other people for your healing throughput? And I think there is, and I think it's Stukov. I think that's as much as you can expect from other people. And if you get more technical than that, it's problematic.
Yeah, and Stukov's booger sharing is along the lines of like XP orbs. It's visual enough that you start to catch on over the course of a game. Mm-hmm. But this whole the ghost flower, because it's not important to you as your character, I don't even know if you can see it if you're not. And I don't think you can see it if you're on the enemy team. I'm not really sure about that. This is happening so infrequently. In our Storm League and quick match environments, if you're going to be on a map where you'll get to 20, why would you skip out on the chance to, oh my God, win a whole team fight as Mega Dragon?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with, right?
But that's still really good. Like this is a nice touch. And situations where Alexstrasza would be good just widened. Because we're not only just like, oh, they have no AoE. In this meta, of course there's circle effects. Of course there's mages. You're not going to go abundance build. But now there's another option beyond that to say I need single target throughput. And she's still got a pacify, which is really cool. It's not a cleanse, but, the range in which Alexstrasza can be picked increased. And that's good. And it's hard to build. That's the hard build to do. So
we're really wading into some of the more technically challenging heroes to adjust with this patch.
Yeah.
And they're coming at it from subtle angles.
Well, maybe the New Balance designer showed off a little bit with that. I know how to make the hard builds good.
Does that make me like the pleb who doesn't understand art?
I mean, you just want to spin on people's faces and heal from it, man. Like, what are you going to do?
Hey, I like slam build. Thank you very much.
That's true. That's true. You want to slam faces and hopefully kill the backline accidentally. What are you going to do? Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to just sleep all over people and Mal'Ganis your business. There's a lot of really tactical, fancy things to do in the Nexus, and those can be balanced out too.
Yep. Well, let's move on from subtle tactics, Kyle. Let's talk about Lili. Because this would probably be the closest thing we've seen to a rework, if nothing else, definitely a rework to Serpent build. So they said that they didn't like how mandatory old hindering, I want to say hinterlands wins for some reason, old hindering wins talent felt. So they made some of its functionality baseline and repositioned some blinding wind talents to make Lili's offensive build more potent. And then they also redesigned many of Lili's Cloud Serpent talents to make them more individually meaningful and to make the collective Cloud Serpent build have more of an identity and purpose of its own. And I think they succeeded there. The new, just like going Serpent build Lili feels good.
There's some oddities in here, but overall, this is really, really exciting for a lot of players. A lot of players really, really like playing Lili, and that's great.
And we got a sexy like base talent or base ability upgrade in Blinding Wind. It's a small slow. It's a 15% slow, but it is a baked in slow.
And look how everyone gets all excited about Jaina, and they're like, she doesn't have movement speed because everybody else is slow. Well, Lili has movement speed on top of this, so she is constantly repositioning around people who are also 15% slowed. So Lili's booking it all over the place and able to get in those situations where she's taking those hits that make her trait tick. And if anything, the only problem with Lili right now might be mana issues, because she's going to be casting so darn much because she's able to get in those fast speed situations. There's a strategy where you grab.
If you're doing this through Serpent build though, and fast feed is active, Cloud Serpent doesn't cost mana, so that's also helping with the mana issues.
That's true. Well, and Lilies are adapting to this by going on Infernal Shrines and grabbing one minion and then not killing it and letting it hit them, or going into lane and like getting an archer, just one archer, to be in range of them. And then being like, shh, everybody don't kill my minion. This one's powering my mana cooldowns.
Yeah, but you're also the healer, and when it matters in a team fight, people are going to try to kill you.
Oh, sure. And because we're still going to go cups despite this buff, CC will still be used against Lili. Jug of 1,000 Cups is still the pickup here because you're going to be aggressive. You're going to be in a lot of situations, but the range allows you to reach back and forward and straddle the whole team and actually support. They even went through and nerfed Water Dragon, which seems kind of weird to me, but I think it's just to like stem the chaos. Like, to anybody who read these notes, they're like, awesome, damage Lili 100% forever and ever, and then they get to Water Dragon, cooldown increase and mana cost increase, and maybe it just helps them realize maybe they should heal somebody for a hot second. Because it didn't need a nerf.
That's fair.
It's not needed. But we have a more damaging Lili. We have a Lili with a tiny bit of CC baked in. And perhaps the scariest part here is that Blessings of Yulon, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, some dragon god in World of Warcraft.
I believe Yulon is how you say it.
Okay,
well done. In my opinion, well done.
Cloud Serpent grants the bearer 10% increased healing received and heals them for 0.5 of their max health each time it attacks. Previously 1%, but didn't have the healing received part of it. And you know what that means, Garrett. That's all healing received. Double support is coming back.
With Lili? You're bringing the damage. You're bringing the damage
Lili
of
is the
Serpent
premier. Yeah, Lili, Uther, Lili is actually it's more Lili Stukov.
Maybe that's it, Kyle. Maybe you may have just cracked it on why they nerf Water Dragon. You think? They think there was a fear? They're like, ooh, double support. Okay, well, if they're going double support, maybe they don't need cups. Maybe there's more interest in Water Dragon.
But they still need cups. Like that is we're double support and we're going to face down all of these crazy things and they're going to try to burst through it. Like, cups was your way to recover from that situation. And in the huge pile of CCL interviews I did, every single Lili and every single player was like, we need those cups. They're so important to the moment fight. And now Lili's better at double support than she was, which is probably the more frightening thing about it. And maybe this is a regression of those philosophies to take away things like flat healing received. We had things like Ana in the past, which was flat healing received. That then became like Ana's healing. So this is that, we can be dramatic and like, slippery slope found in Heroes of the Storm. Like, I don't care. I want to ride that slope. That slope looks fun. Let's do it. Let's all get beanbags? Potato sacks.
I think my trepidation, or not my trepidation, but I think my cool demeanor in regards to this Lily build or change, I really like it personally. I'm not sure I'm sold on like, let's all draft Lily. Like, I'm really stoked to go quick match some Lily with this. I'm not sure I'm favoriting her for my roster for draft.
I mean, she got a buff to let's go. Like, if there's one sign that people should be going Lily right now, it's that the best cleanse in the game just got better.
Yeah, boy. All right, man. I think you're convincing me.
Look,
so everybody, this week, when you see that battle tag named Garrett, I'm not clever with my battle tag. Pick Lily, and you're unhappy with it. Blame Kyle Fergusson.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. No,
I do think we've made a Lily with fast feet now increasing its importance through the abilities of these talents, with the straddling of the team with Jugs, now with the slow attached to blinding winds and the Cloud Serpent's viability. That's a lot. Like, and look at that like minion thing I just talked about. Like and even just taking any damage, being like, oh, there's an Arthas, I'm going to go stand in that. Like, there are a lot of choices, and much as Heroes of the Storm is begrudged as the easy MOBA to play, I think Lily is wrongfully the easy healer to heal now.
You're really selling me on this patch throughout this, man. Like, when I did my like once over on this patch, I was just like, all right, it's more of the last patch, but how many patches have we been through where the majority of the episode we're like, underpicked talent showing up, underpicked talent showing up, and will it work? Probably not. Who knows? Too early to tell. There is a lot of underpicked talent changes in this particular patch, and yet the conversations we're having here, they're pretty damn interesting. Like, what we just came out of with Alex Draza. Is it like big, ridiculous, obvious, like, yeah, her healing is just better and easier and more reliable now? No. But subtle ways to build and play her are getting tweaked in a way that might actually come to fruition. And I mean, I think we both agree that you should just go Serpent build Lily at this point.
Well, and I think that this is a really great thing to be doing in this stage of the game's life, right? Like, we were previously, WoW Classic, where a Shadow Priest got Mind Flay, and that's it. Like, now they're exploding into balls, and they have, like, hovery ghosts, and they're shooting ghosts at enemies, and I don't even know what all they're doing in Shadowlands now, but it was pretty ridiculous already in Battle for Azeroth. I love that we are attacking these lesser used builds and making them so unique that actually we may reach a point where someone will say, oh, I'm a Q build Ragnaros main. Like, we are so divided in what a character can do and what their different builds are capable of that we start having subsections of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's what they've always wanted to accomplish with fixing up underpicked builds, right? But you're really starting to sell me that throughout this, they may actually be starting to succeed on some of those desires. I don't know about Ragnaros, chat room. I'm pretty skeptical on Ragnaros.
Sure. And Ragnaros is like, he's so many choices. Oh my God. Like, the hardest thing about Ragnaros is he's like hard mouthfeel. Like, you want no movement at all? Like, get rid of like a single teleport, because you're going to have to walk into that team fight.
Yeah, you are trading it out for extreme stall and turtle mechanics, but...
Yes.
What are you doing in between those lava wave cooldowns?
I love Ragnaros for one reason, and it's because it drives Lost Vikings insane. Here's a guy who is busting his butt on the battlefield to soak, to join his 3 characters together, to maneuver, to do all these cool things. And I hit an R occasionally, ruining all their hard work.
And that's a good way to look at it. All right, let's talk about a hero who only got 1 change, and it confuses the hell out of me. Lucio. High 5 at level 10. Movement speed while skating to target increased by 25%. Previously, wasn't it like quickly skate?
Well, it still says quickly skate, so we're now up to a 310% movement speed increase while I'm moving to the character.
Okay, that's not okay. When it's increased by 25%. I was just misreading this. My God, I've read this thing a million times, dude, and I was just misreading it. When it said increase to 25%, I'm like, wait, wasn't it close to 300 before? This seems terrible. Never mind, I'm dumb.
So compare this to, he's got an aura that he's empowering on and off. Lucio, much like many healers, would really like to have a direct heal in certain situations, because that would surely shore up his kit. I mean, look at, Alex Straza, Uther. People can be like, you are healed today. That's what we're trying to reach with Lucio, and him getting to the point where he high fives them faster is the way to make that viable. But it's still not sound barrier, and there's still travel time and danger associated with Lucio getting in there.
It's blink heal envy is what Lucios are suffering from.
I would say so. And Blink Heal also gets Brightwing into a lot of trouble. I've certainly died quite a few times getting in a sweet Blink Heal. But maybe we're getting there. This is really minor, though, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I just read it wrong. That's why I was like, I'm confused by this. Then there's Malfurion. The devs said that they decided to add an additional quest to Malf's talent tree, and in doing so, wanted to bring them online earlier in the game. Swapping the level 1 and 4 talent tiers will allow players more time to stack their broccoli or treant damage or mana pool. I love that. I love that so much. Someone who also refuses to call it a treant. And then said on the same tier, Strangling Vines was always a bit of an oddball talent, so we decided to bring in something a bit more flavorful. So yeah, Strangling Vines is out, and what is the new one? Deep Roots?
Emerald Dreams.
Emerald Dreams. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Emerald Dreams. Sorry, it says it right there. I was looking in the wrong spot. Entangling Roots sleeps enemies for 2 seconds after its roots expire.
Kind of a big deal. Now, for Malfurion enthusiasts, which there are all of 4 of us, this is really fun, first of all, because our quest talents for Deep Roots, and that's the one where it's a bigger root, but now every time you root an enemy, you get 10 mana permanently. So that's kind of nice. Malfurion has some very early game mana issues. Getting that at 1 is great. And plus, as they mentioned in the notes there, your treant is stacking earlier, which means it's going to be more deadly, which is awesome. Probably don't use it in Delili, though, because then we'll get that exact situation, which would be like, treant, hit me. Oh, yeah, I'm empowered. It's perfect. Let's talk about this Emerald Dreams for a moment, though, because a sleep is a guaranteed 0.5 second stun. You've probably been hit by an on a sleep, and then 1,000 things hit you, and you're like, why wasn't that enough to wake me up? Well, Deep Sleep hits at the start of the night instead of the middle, in this case. And it says, Entangling Root sleeps enemies for 2 seconds after the root expires. That's the big deal of the text here. Because that means soft cleanses still cause you to become slept. So
the cleanse comes in, takes the roots off, but then immediately puts you to sleep?
Exactly. So I've got yourself a favorite one I can't wait to use against Sonya. Because Hurricane removes slows and roots. Doesn't make you unstoppable.
It's the only time I really want to take that talent.
And you'll now go to sleep for 2 seconds after removing it from yourself.
What a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? Because what do you do?
Situation.
What do you do? I guess I still do it to put myself to sleep sooner, so because otherwise I'm still waiting for the duration of roots to end before I can be useful.
Totally. But there are situations where you might want to ride that route for a little bit, like Zul'jin. Zul'jin can pop his Voodoo Shuffle and walk out of roots, but he will now go to sleep then. It's probably better in some situations for Zul'jin to say, you know what, I'm fine being rooted for now. I'm going to auto attack, and then I'll go to sleep on the other side of this engagement.
There's also like a pretty obvious one that we haven't talked about yet, which is how many times have you gotten a sick root, Kyle, and your team is too far behind you to make something happen out of it?
And so they go to sleep for a little bit, and now you have time to frame up on them?
Get a little bit more, yeah.
I do think there's going to be plenty of situations where this does nothing at all, right? Like you are being attacked by the lone Genji/Tracer. You do some alt-clicking on yourself, drop the roots as you run away. Then they walk into the roots, they go to sleep, and hey, at least you survived. That's probably what's going to look like more of the time. But the main feature, of course, is Garrosh, coordinate play, throws into the Malfurion roots, everyone piles on, they go to sleep, and since they're stuck in that guaranteed sleepy duration, it's too much, and that's massive CC, and they're dead.
Well, damage will break the sleep, yes?
But not for the first 0.5 seconds.
And that's all that's
which is
matter.
why, right, and that's why when Ana hits you and then auto attacks you a little bit, you don't just immediately wake up.
Gotcha. Yeah, you've got that breath window. That is cool. And in those situations where it doesn't do much, like on that retreat scenario you said, like, well, what's the big deal? Like, that's fine. Like, probably other scenarios in that game where you got value out of it. But dude, bravo on the very specific examples of like your Sonya and your Zul'jin, because how many times have we brought them up as like specific counters to, this was way back when, but when we were in that like Malfurion heavy meta, like, hey, you're getting hit by a lot of roots. Well, guess who can get out of them?
Yeah. I mean, think of a situation where a huge root hits a whole enemy team and Brightwing thinks she's going to be the most heroic person in the world, goes in there with her soothing mist, is like, everybody out of the roots. Everyone's asleep.
Yep.
But it's something to get excited about. At the end of the day, it's still Malfurion who can't heal through burst. So
that's not the point of this, though. Like, I've been trying to bring us down to earth, Kyle. And now I'm saying, run with this, have fun with this, be excited.
Oh yeah, no, there's great
Dreams.
like your level 4 talents, previous to your level 1s. That's a great switcheroo because so many times I would hit the opening battle and go, I'm going to take rejuvenation because I have no idea what this enemy team's going to look like or if they're even going to attack me. And now getting all the way to 4, much like our Tyrande switcheroos in the past, I can take some time to think about that. Am I getting in auto attacks? Can I go Celestial Alignment? That's a really, really fun quest. But I emergency have to go rejuvenation so many times just in case. And Shando's Clarity got a really cool augment where you now have 2 charges of Innervate. So if you can really pass on damage and empower your team, I think that's just a more fun Malfurion.
Double the D?
Double D.
It was just sitting right there. I apologize.
Yeah, I saw you go for it, man.
I apologize. I passed a joke to be like, I'm trying to keep us grounded as we talk about a roots talent. I passed that joke up, but well, now I'm explaining it. Let's talk about Whitemane.
Yeah, I think it's really fun. I don't think Malfurion is going to explode in popularity since he has to be such a late pick, and most late pick supports are not going to be support mains.
I think those are good words to live by. And now, after all the kind of conversation we've had about this being one of the more interesting patches that focused a lot on underpicked talents, Whitemane, looking pretty kind of par for the course. Let's just try and breathe some life into talents people are not finding success with.
But this is all auto attack talents for Whitemane. And if Whitemane is dealing damage and healing through it, well, guess who might be another good companion for double support coming in?
You're really Did you want this reality, Kyle? Did you realize that some people listen to what we say?
Yeah, no, I'm aware. It's just the trend right now. I'm not particularly advertising for it, but I do see it as something that can be coordinated through with some pretty good regularity. You can put Uther in the solo lane if you really have to for a time. You can draft other forms of lane clear in order to run double support. The main issue from Support Apocalypse, where we got rid of their lane clear, still exists. It's just that we're finding ourselves in more situations where our supports can be more aggressive and I think more fun, ultimately. And if that hits, then there's a world where we have more supports in general. The guy who is a Zeratul main says, well, you know, I'm really enjoying Lili, Kharazim, white main at the moment. I'm willing to heal now. And if you get 2 of those, hey, now you got double support comp. And that ain't so bad.
What about Scarlet Aegis? Because that is a substantial heal increase. 250 to 300 is a 20% increase on the heal for that heroic.
I would say this is, again, a little bit of look this way, as we have taken, much like Water Dragon, a build that deals damage. And then we went and said, but we still think you should do the healing ult.
Do you think it's enough? Because it's really, really lagging behind Divine Reckoning in both pick rate and win rate.
Yeah. We're looking at 63% for Divine Reckoning and a overall 5% higher win rate. I mean, Aegis is a great emergency button. I think buffing it alongside the auto attack build where you'll probably be trying to stand in some more aggressive positions is a really good idea because it's always going to be focused on you in the first place. So shoring up that at the same time is a smart move. Whether it's going to be the go-to or if it's overpowered now, I have no idea because I see like a white main every 3 months.
There's always that too, right? Is how much are you actually seeing these heroes?
Yeah.
But I have a hard time when I see the white mains. I'm afraid of white main.
Sure, that's because she's invincible, except for when we play her because we run out of mana instantly.
Because we don't play her enough.
Right, exactly.
Is white main the Muradin for supports? It's like, oh, if you didn't play her for a week, you're bad at her again.
I mean, the weird thing about that is that a bad Muradin still does some pretty darn good work in silver. Whereas I don't think the white main is something that should be drafted as you guys are making me support, huh? Well, here you go. This is the best I got. Like, probably stick to your Regars.
That was some of the realest shit you've ever said, man. A little burden of execution coming back into our conversation here. And also, Illidan coming back into our conversation as we move into the only melee assassin to receive any change at all. Dev said that they don't mind when Illidan players prefer to shy away from team fights early in the game, but they want to make sure it's not the only option for Illidan. So they're swapping his healing Talenteer with his mobility Talenteer in hopes of achieving this. And so, yeah, all level 4 talents have been moved to 7, and all level 7 talents have been moved to level 4. This is some upheaval.
Yes. I don't know what to think of this right now because Hunter's Onslaught is the main item at the level 7 talent tier. This is basic abilities heal for 35% of the damage they deal. This bonus is doubled versus heroes. So in a team fight, Illidan would now have more survivability and perhaps more stickiness, of course, because he would be using all those abilities to continue team fighting rather than maybe doing like a friend or foe dive out. But this just gives him more healing on camps, which means Illidan is still in the same place he was. I really do think that Illidan is basically in this like see you later at 20 kind of stage. And while camps are great, there are other heroes who we would see a performance out of way earlier than Illidan.
Chat room's asking if we see like the re-arrival of Meta Lili, does that up Illidan's stock?
Oh, because you can like put a serpent on him and watch him go?
Yeah.
That's interesting. We could also say that, you know, there's now a more popular blind hero and we're not in that blind meta still, so Illidan still doesn't have much of a place.
And also with like the damage, like the incoming damage kind of tempo disruption of his evasion too. Like, you know, Cups would do some work keeping the Illidan going.
Right, but then again, you just brought up another ability that dodges basic attacks, which we're currently not really in the meta for.
Yeah, it's still something, but
yeah, it absolutely is. And Illidan is really, really fun to play for a lot of people, and it's really enjoyable to be playing this. I don't know. It's It's not really chess. It's not as simple as checker. Sorry, maybe. It's not Candyland, but you're taking a camp and you're looking across the map and you might hunt to something cool. That's really enjoyable. And when you find a match where you get to go Metamorphosis and it works, that is a high octane thrill drug that you can't get anywhere else in the MOBA sphere.
You're not wrong. I mean, like, I think Illidan might be my favorite least played hero.
Right. I think that's probably a lot of people's favorite, hero that they don't feel good at.
He's so much fun to play, and yet I have so many bruises, and I am my scars with Illidan, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell you, Kyle.
I think that I don't want to. I like where they're thinking. I love that they acknowledge that Illidan just doesn't participate until after 10. I think that all of his level 16 talents should be a huge power spike, but look at Marked for Death. Dive deals extra damage on a consecutively targeted hero. Firebrand every third basic attack. Blades of Aznaroth after hitting 5 heroes with Sweeping Strike. He's just too slow. He's sticky, though. So I get why these would be his power spike. But the fantasy of Illidan is, as a gameplay mechanic, not necessarily the character, is I'm off over here doing this, and now I'm here! Crazy bombastic Illidan play. All right, it's over. See you guys. And that's really enjoyable. As for like what Illidan would look like in a more like flavorful sense, I don't really know, because he didn't play like this at all in Warcraft 3. And he's an NPC in World of Warcraft that, kind of aggro's bosses, and we have to manage his health and that sort of weird stuff,
Yeah. I don't think I inherently have as much of an issue with Illidan not being a constant presence in team fights, or at the very least, kind of just keeping to himself until post 10. Because you're describing a more interesting Nazeebo.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
like, where the hell are you? Well, he's doing his job. That's what he's doing. He's going to show up and he's going to barf frogs and he's going to disappear again. These are like Batman heroes. They show up when you need them and then you don't see them again for a while.
I think you've touched on something there that's interesting. Both are a little too slow for what our meta wants. Like, I might hog wild accidentally out of a team fight, but at least I already hog wild, and that was a pretty big deal. Or I dropped my diva bomb and maybe it got countered, so I leave, but that was a big deal and I showed up and it was a very immediate impact.
So we're really just having a conversation about how passive is too passive.
Yeah, overstatement of the year perhaps in all life, but it's true. Like, Nazeebo showing up being like, I hope these toads do something, isn't what we need. And I think Nazeebo is my most played quick match hero. I'm not asking for changes there. Again, he is a relaxing joy.
At least when Illidan shows up, he is targeted. You know where that damage is going, and you know that damage will be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm going to bat here, man. That's I know this is a somewhat strange comparison, but they have a similar cadence of teamfight appearance.
I would say that this is, again, a note on a project for another day. This is a cool experiment, but I think ultimately it's going to equal out to Illidan still not joining those team fights at 4.
Well, listen, you're saying this, it's not playing to how it's not speaking to how Illidan played in Warcraft 3, but it is certainly speaking to how high maintenance Illidan is as a lore character.
Sure. And he was boring in Warcraft 3. Like that, it was a different time, and being on fire and having an aura ability, we all kind of went, whoa. Nowadays, we're bored by the idea.
Kael'thas was a much more interesting character, I think, in Warcraft 3.
Yeah, he was also putting out fire.
Oh, I was just kind of talking about personality, but you do you.
Oh, sure. Well, he had a lot. They both went through a lot, but Illidan kind of did it to himself a little more.
Yes. All right. Let's move into ranged assassin, and let's get to probably our first in meta conversation of the day with Chromie.
Kind of feels, I'd say Diablo was to an extent.
Depends where you're playing, but yeah. I'm gonna go to bat and say Chromie is the universally, like, we're gonna all say Chromie is meta, and Chromie is getting nerfed. Dev said that they were seeing a trend of high-level Chromie players combining easy and consistent talents, and that while they like those talents, they don't believe that they should continue to be the best options for our best players, so they're reducing their raw power. This is an interesting philosophy. Have we seen this in the past? If we have, I am forgetting an example of it, where they've been like,
how do you mean?
If you're going to have prowess with this hero at the high level, we don't want you to be doing it with the easy talents. I'm struggling to think of another instance of this in developer comment history.
I mean, we've certainly seen some holding back on things like Lily and Raynor in the past due to their ease of play. But not something that's so skill-based is kind of the weird way to put it. Like, Chromie does take quite a bit of practice to get good at, but once you've mastered those ideas, it's not so different than Tassadar, and you're just going to fire at the groups of people and hope things hit.
Right. And they said they also want to increase available counterplay for Time Trap, and so the Time Trap health has been reduced significantly from 500 to 400, which is a 20% reduction.
The thing I really like here is that Slowing Sands had its mana cost increased from 3 to 5 per second and cast range reduced. Which is just, really nice. A very frustrating ability to have to deal with. Still not, if I had to make a top 5 frustrating abilities, it still wouldn't be on there. I've got way more opinions about Falstad's frustration. This is really smart. It's very incremental, and Chromie is not going to disappear from your games. She just won't be as throughputty. And hopefully she'll have to back for some mana, which I did see quite a bit yesterday. Chromies were running and having to make some difficult choices.
Yeah. They're buffing up some other, stranger, lesser pick talents. But yeah, the goal, as stated, seems to be to kind of bring Chromie in line, and this does feel like they've accomplished it.
Chromie's also one of those that, I'm kind of nervous to even comment on, because not only does every Chromie sort of have their favorite level 2 talent when it comes to the time traps, they all argue which one is the best. And the pick rates are pretty well spread. I mean, Time Troubles, the one that gives you armor, was properly nerfed as it is the highest pick rate talent. And when you're thinking about people diving you, it's not necessarily that you want to run away from that. You want to survive and have your team react to you.
Yeah, how many times have you oh yeah, I got the Chromie. Wait, why isn't this Chromie dead yet?
And some people might say that something like Timeout wasn't nerfed, and that's a 60% pick rate. But I think Chromie is still in a very healthy spot, and great on them for being so restrained on this nerf.
Yeah, as you said, incremental. I'm not going to go after every single talent that is popular and winning. They went after a select few. All right, get your prepare your Falstad opinions, because it is time to talk about Falstad. This is light rework territory, because they, in the dev comments, talk about how for as long as Falstad has had Boomerang, there have been players that wanted it to be a part of the base Falstad kit, and so they're doing it. They're baking Boomerang into Hammerang, but doing a lot of tweaking as a result. So Hammerang as a base ability on your queue, the damage is going significantly down from 121 to 80. That's over a 30% reduction. And now it can be reactivated mid-flight to explode, dealing 95 damage around the hammer, which is low, especially considering we also stripped out base damage from the standard hammer as it's flying through the air. Because the old previous level 7 talent, when you would pick up Boomerang, the damage was it was 165 and then plus 4% per level, as these things tend to do. If you run that backwards, you're still way above doing 95 damage on reactivation. It would have been around the 129 mark if they had just run that negative 4% backwards to level 1.
But that's splash, which means lane clear, which means Falstad can clear faster. And my first thought was, no, we can't have Falstad doing lane clear because that's how he's going to get wingman stacks for his bribe and be a real jerk.
Well, they thought of that.
Bribe is gone.
Yes.
It's gone, which is so nice. And I love it because oftentimes you'd see the Falstad fly in the camp and you couldn't react in time. And then the camp would be done and then he'd hearth out before he even got there. And if you're on the team with that, it's like, thanks for the camp, Falstad, but you want to join the team fight? And they're like, nah, I got to soak for more stacks of bribes, hun. And you just go insane. Like, we're talking about we're not being in an auto attack meta, but there's also so few auto attackers. And this combination of lane clear and removal of bribe to me says, thank goodness we're going to have a Falstad that joins team fights. He's so powerful, but he's always off doing stuff.
But like, are we getting back into like old school Falstad territory though, where they weren't trained and they weren't part of your map macro? And like, what do we lose? What are we losing by this? By having, like, what burden now is upon our draft having a Falstad that can't macro?
What my thought would more go to the lines of, you now have an option for that Greymane, Vala, and even in particular that dueler hero who would pick out stragglers on the sides or win those really tiny engagements by trading. Falstad W build was already really, really good. Granted, Wingman kind of empowered it by increasing your lightning rod. Now we have just a horrible talent name, Dishonorable Discharge.
That is a thing in the military, Kyle.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay. It's a horrible phrase. But moving on. This is my salt wall.
Oh,
I despise lightning rod. I hate the idea of somebody hovering along out just in my range with increased movement speed and barrel roll while I try to break said range. And now it has like Li Ming reset ability. If it kills you, it resets. The cooldown is reduced in the first place. When lightning strikes hit heroes, it increases their damage. So not only are you like totally suffering by being targeted over and over by this thing, with the potential for Falstad to basically go Li Ming ham on your team should he get the kill, but also you're feeding into the Falstad being more powerful as it goes. It feels like old Chromium. I hate it.
I'm with you there. All of those abilities, even the more innocuous ones like Asmodan's Charge Beam and Leoric. I don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, well, and then Leoric, he starts moving slower at least, and like, you're healing him and it kind of sucks, but it's not gonna completely destroy you. And then on top of this, for my salt wall anyway, I feel like they hit it too. This wall is massive because they still allowed static shield to exist, where he gets a shield by doing this lightning business. So not only
can reset it and he can quest it to do more damage. Jeez.
And then you've got this Falstad who's now like sitting on this huge shield and invincible and resetting, and it's a really, really intense thing. Now, of course, I talked about bugs earlier. This is currently stacking on non-hero targets, so it is an issue. Make sure you ban him for the next couple days.
Wow.
So
that's problematic. And then we're having all this conversation about lightning rod, and we didn't talk about how the jury is it still out on his macro ability, his merc ability, because they added on to lightning rod baseline that it deals 100% additional damage to minions and mercenaries. They even make reference to it in the dev comments that they hope that this will compensate for the fact that they have just taken Wingman away.
That's fine by me, actually, because if I'm sitting in a bush and I see Falstad walk in and start lightning rodding something that's not me, I'm happy.
Okay.
I
think it's okay. I think it's okay as well, but I'm also curious, like, I know he's doing well right now. There's a bug, all that stuff, but when that's fixed, when that's going on, are we losing something from the convenience that bribe on Falstad brought?
No, I do think that with Seasoned Marksman removed on top of Wingman, we have a Falstad who can still do camps with that lightning rod, in particular, just, knocking out the Giants camps and whatnot, which is very helpful and very important. And he still has barrel roll to go over those walls. So he is not only capable, he is safe in those situations. And will continue to do that job into the future.
So to pick back up a thread from much earlier in the show, do you think this is the trendy pick coming out of this patch?
Oh, you like, will we see 1 million Falstads?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Particularly when there's going to be that time after the bug is fixed where people continue to try to exploit it. And honestly, if it has a cap, which it does, they're reaching that cap faster, which is very, very dangerous. But it's not the most insane buff. It isn't. So we're seeing like 200,000 damage Falstad games in quick match right now with very few deaths.
Jeez.
I expect that Falstad will be a feature, but let's walk this back. Let's walk back my own personal assault in tethering the lightning rod, and just talk about our need for auto attackers, and even our need to get away from the constant damage dealers that we're dealing with right now. Like, that's how we're going to change the meta, is giving other options than Tychus. That's like the only auto attacker we're running. There's Zul'jin, of course, but that's very particular. A lot of the rest of them are mages, and not that we run double mage, but Cassia, Orphea, and things like this end up coming in and augmenting and having other damage types on the in-between, and Falstad brings that as well. So I think this is a really healthy change for the game, and we're just going to see more of him, and hopefully that'll just shore up the teams. And maybe people really get excited about a pretty cool talent, Sustained Wind at 13. He no longer has his giant killer, but if he can hold on to his tailwind, he can increase that damage, which is kind of a wiggly, cool idea to play by. And that could equal an auto attack meta, which could lead to Artanis being a big deal, right? And then we finally have the big meta shift everybody wants.
But again, like, your tethering Salt aside, just Lightning Rod in general seems to be pulling away from that, right? Because that's not bringing constant damage from auto attacks. It's bringing constant damage from a spell.
Sure. And he's moving faster and he can barrel roll, which means I can't walk away from him like Leoric. So the counterplay issue there is where that Salt Wall exists. Which is why I would want to charge his face on Diablo, but Diablo got nerfed, so I'm kind of like, whoa, how do I kill this crazy bird man?
Leap Sonya.
Could work.
That's my answer for everything, though, Kyle. So just sure. So you know.
We think in terms of what we have, right?
Yeah. I'm just like, it's fine. Just it's my duct tape of Heroes of the Storm is Leap Sonya.
Sure.
Just throw a Leap Sonya at it. It'll sort itself out. I'm sure. I guess the only answer to that is Deathwing. But then you went slam build, so you're fine.
Oh man, Deathwing would feel so bad into that lightning stuff,
wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, also, I think we should give it shout out to any Rainers out there itching to play something else, because I think if you know when it's time to stand and deliver and chase down your kill, you'll probably do okay on this new Falstad.
Oh yeah, and we've talked about plenty of times the sort of barrel roll dash running gun kind of business of Vala, Falstad, Tychus. Like, adding Falstad back in as an option, particularly when I'm personally seeing a lot of Lost Vikings, it's a perfect time for this. This is great.
Well, cool, man. You've really brought me around, dude. I'm not just like being nice. Like, I came into this like, I need to meter my grump factor. I think this patch isn't for me, but kind of hyped about getting in there and playing some Falstad. I share your concerns for the greater meta as a whole.
For my own, I want to play things that are bruisery and kind of move a little slow and have to make engagements. I hate everything about this Falstad update, but it's great. It is a really cool design,
dude. I think that's a hella props for being honest and saying I hate this. It's great.
Yeah,
that's a good thing to recognize. Hey, speaking of things that I hate and are great, let's talk about Phoenix.
Okay.
Whoo, boy. All right. I just want to jump straight to the fact that we're getting level 20 called Armageddon Beam.
It's his first augment for Planet Cracker. He didn't have one in the past.
Yeah, which is nutty. But yeah, my assault wall has a name, and it's Phoenix. Just in general, like I don't want to play against them. They drive me absolutely bonkers.
I know quite a few people who would agree with you.
Yeah, it is a long-standing concern. Like we talked about, when I see a white mane, it strikes fear into my heart. Same thing with Phoenix, only I see Phoenix like once a month as opposed to bi-monthly or every other month with a white mane. But other than that, I mean, it's mostly underperforming talents showing up. Inhibiting energy is like wildly unpopular at tier 4. Emergency protocol, it gives target acquired a run for its money. But inhibiting energy is just sitting there, not getting picked.
To me, Phoenix is like golf swings. Everyone argues about how you're supposed to do it, and then they just go play badly anyway, so I don't even know what's going on.
Do you understand golf? I think is an important part of this analogy.
No, but nobody agrees with each other anyway, so I don't really want to participate. Like, I'll stick to miniature golf, thank you, and play Vala or something like that.
Remind me post-show, there's such a universally accepted car analogy to this that I'm gonna table it. Remind me after the show to inform you of this.
All right, sounds good. This is all interesting stuff for Phoenixes. They are extremely rare. I think it's cool that they got a new Planet Cracker, which takes the cooldown to 60 seconds, which is just nuts because this is a 40-second cooldown cut off a 100-second ability. So when we're sitting there and like that Braxis wave comes out and it melts, we can take some comfort in that. That was a 100-second cooldown to do that.
Yeah, dude, and I'm about to enter a world where I'm gonna have to be dodging so many more hinterlands blasts, and then you lay this on me. I guess it's level 20, right? Like, and it's Phoenix. How many do we think this is going to cause an epidemic of Phoenix play?
No,
I don't think so.
No, and it's a really cool update for some things, and there are some things that I think are nice changes, like Arsenal Overcharge. Previously, basic attacks reduced his ability cooldowns. Now it's tied to just Phase Bomb, which we know Phase Bomb is the slower attack, so that sounds really nice for the rest of us, but I don't even know if they're doing it. Like, this is like them announcing there's a new tax form I have to fill out. I'm like, well, I'm already filling out 20, so I might as well just keep doing taxes. Like, that's how Phoenix players are going to take this.
Yeah, no one really is taking Arsenal Overcharge, by the way, but it does have a good win rate. But Phoenix in general has a good win rate. It kind of seems like even if you're picking talents that no one takes, you have an above 50% win rate.
Because you're Phoenix,
you know what you're doing. You came prepared. Like, you talentless Phoenix. It's a good kit, but it's also one that I do not understand.
And I think my only comment is that I think it's really, really cool that you got Armageddon Beam. I would love to see everybody get a Purification Salvo upgrade too. But now is not the time for that because that's definitely the more popular heroic.
Yeah, and I share those thoughts. So let's move right along into Mephisto, where the dev said that Skull Missile talents are underperforming across the board. So they're looking to make the ability slightly more consistent baseline and injecting a little more power into its talents. So we always get excited about baseline changes. Skull Missile's launch delay has been reduced. This is the number one reason you will never see me on Mephisto. I can't stand using Skull Missile.
That's fair. It totally looks just like the ability from Gauntlet Legends 64 on the Wizard. So
you are
I kind of love it.
Wow, dude, you just took me back to a Mountain Dew soaked pizza party.
Yeah, man. Like, every time I see it, just nostalgia washes over me.
Wow. All right. But yeah, this for me is like the reason I don't play this hero. So the fact that like that launch delay is getting slightly reduced, that piques my interest, on top of the fact that it's being conjoined with the missile speed increasing. So it launches faster and it moves quicker.
This is, of course, to shore up a Skull Missile build, which is not very popular at the moment, as most people go with that lightning business. So you got Unyielding Power at 1, which got a little bit better, and you get an extra charge of Skull Missile, which is very, very cool for doing the second tier reward. And you get Abhorrent Skull at 13, which is also a nice little switcheroo. Previously, hitting a hero with Skull Missile granted 25% spell power for 6 seconds. Now, Skull Missile just flat deals 40% more damage to heroes under 50%. So it's like a really cool snipe off ability should they walk out of range of your W, which you may mix in. Granted, there's also W talent, so probably not. The main thing here is that Mephisto just got better, and I highly doubt people are going to switch their builds because Mephisto is just better with base Skull Missile.
Yeah. Is it a bad thing, though?
No, that's fine. Mephisto's win rate isn't outrageous, currently chilling at 49%, and Skull Missile delay and missile speed was slow. And hitting that, as you said, would make you just feel like a better person.
Yeah.
So, which increases the chance for you to enjoy the hero and all that sort of business.
Do you think so? So Mephisto's not a particularly popular hero, but he has his diehard fans. If we're looking at Hot Slugs right now, 4.5% popularity, combining both picks and bans. Do you think we're going to see him dip like the first week? Like, even because this is inherently better for Skull Missile, like diehard Mephistos are just so used to the old delay and the old missile speed that they might overshoot it?
No, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Honestly, my real opinion is that the Mephistos are going to get on their main accounts and play Mephisto again, lose because they're too high league for the Mephisto to have the effect they want. And so they're going to go get on their Mephisto Smurfs because they own a second account to play Mephisto because they love it so much. And there they'll have an increased win rate.
Okay.
That's how I see it going down.
Okay. Yeah, I think
all
that's
the Mephistos, all the Mephistos I know in Storm League have second Mephisto accounts for when they get too high and they can't play anymore.
I never thought about that. That's a really interesting thing to know. Is that how I need to learn Mephisto? That it's my solo Smurf account. It's just Mephisto.
I've got the beard already, but there's a clean shaven version of me out there who made a second Diablo account just to keep playing Diablo in Platinum.
Wait, so you are your evil twin? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, right. But he's switcherooed, right? So if you ever see a clean shaven Kyle, that's the evil one.
Okay. All right.
I am self-declaring I'm the good one, though, which might be an evil act. So we'll have to check on alignment charts.
Stay tuned. All right, let's bring it home with Tracer. Final hero getting changed. Dev said that Tracer's recall talents are underperforming while a few others are overperforming. So they're making adjustments to both to try and even her out as I throw a pen that I was playing with. So more baseline changes here. Melee. The pulse bomb charge generation reduced from 6 enemies to /12 heroes to 5/10.
Right. So you generated more hitting heroes with your melee than you did hitting minions. Now both those amounts are down, but your pulse bomb overall damage went up.
Yes. And both the target damage and the AoE damage.
Right. So what we have here just in this very beginning, before we even get into talents, is a Tracer that is better for those in the know. And for those who want to just farm bombs and then drop them poorly, you won't be as good at being bad. There's some really cool crunchy stuff in here for people who manage their wells really well with things like, is that a health pack? Or take advantage of Jumper at 13. The Tracer is definitely in the Windstrider's Sammy territory. Where, like, if you like Tracer, you're probably aware of half the bugs on how to use her. And if you're not that great at Tracer, you're probably much like me on Illidan. You just do it for fun every blue moon or so.
And so it sounds like it is a good idea to just kind of, even her out.
Yeah.
Take a look at what's not doing so well and maybe knock down the things that are doing a little too well.
And there's also like a new option for you at 13 because Telefrag got an upgrade where you are now unkillable for 1 second after you do your recall. So if you find yourself late game Tracer recalling into a pile of noise that's absolutely going to kill you because the enemy team is that good or that aware of how Tracer works, you can now have a counter pick, but you're giving up things like Untouchable and Jumper. So that is a very interesting way to make Tracers think about their current game, rather than what they normally do, which is the same build every time, and continue to push what they know the character is capable of, regardless of talent build.
I'm surprised you're not like squeeing about Telefrag, listening to you yell about things like iframes the other day.
Oh, sure. Yeah, rolling's very important, and make sure you don't fat roll in Dark Souls and all that. But that sort of stuff is so particular. The only reason I care about this stuff is because I have Mockery on my NGS team, who is a Tracer main. So I got a full rundown of how this stuff matters. Otherwise, I'd really have no idea. Yeah,
it's been a while since you and I had like a hot second, with old school Tassadar Tracer, where we just couldn't get enough. And I think that's one of the only duos you and I liked swapping roles, where I was like, nah, I'm on Tracer this time, you Tassadar.
Yeah.
But that was the last time I know both of us were like, on the Tracer train. And it's been a long time for both of us.
I think there's also some, when it comes to drafting in particular, there is the issue where you want a late pick Tracer, and if you're a Tracer main, it's going to be banned because no one wants to deal with that. And if you are hovering any sort of high octane assassin, Li Ming's going to pick before you get to.
I think that's all right.
So hurrah for Tracers all over quick match for a while. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah. All right, Kyle. So we made it through. Who got buffed? Who got nerfed? What else is going on? Even though it's not looking like it's working out in the early days here, I think we put Mal'Ganis clearly in the buff column.
Oh, yeah, this is a buff. He will, I think, go down in win rate as people try him, realize he still has his old weaknesses, and move away.
Tyrael as well. I mean, it's technically a buff. This is the one I think I'm the most critical of. I don't like these Tyrael changes.
Sure, and I really made a big deal about him losing his tank viability. Really, in most games where Tyraels aren't managing the Elrune's teleport for the slow in the first place, there's a really, really chaotic tank that you may have accidentally run into named Tyrael, and the same is going to be happening.
And we've also got Artanis, Ragnaros, Lili, big one, big buffs on Lili, Malfurion and Mephisto. They're all in that buff column.
Yeah, pretty solidly in there. I did include Ragnaros in the buffs, even though those just talents, because there are levels where you might break your Meatball or Blastwave build to pick up one of these new augments.
Yeah. Zalvax in the chat room is saying their prediction is that Malfurion will turn out better than people think.
I think so. The learning curve is rough, and you can't do jack about Pyroblast.
I think if we keep banning Hogger, I think we could find ways to... Oh, he meant Mal'Ganis. My how dare I not decipher MAL correctly?
Oh, yeah, the multi-mals.
Okay, yeah. I disagree. I think Mal'Ganis is still a bad pick in this meta.
I think he's going to be better. I do think this is a buff because when you see an opportunity to actually draft him when there's not that ETC and those particular knockbacks that he struggles with, he will now be overall better. And the fact that they targeted his survivability rather than his damage more so, like this damage buff isn't insane. It adds to his survivability because he deals damage for health, but overall his survivability is what matters. And that's where he thrives, is floating, flying, sleeping, and being just a jerk all over the enemy backline and living for as long as possible. And in the proper draft with the moons aligning, Mal'Ganis is better. But those moons there's like 12 of them, and they're all different sizes, and sometimes they collide, and they're just not into alignment.
And also there's a lot of other people that benefit from those moons aligning.
Yes, that is also the other counterpoint. Is This happens with Lunara when she's like really, really out of meta. There'll be those perfect situations for a Lunara, and you're like, I didn't even think of her. Now I'm thinking about her though.
Are you thinking about her when the opposing team didn't draft CC?
Sometimes
I am.
Mostly it's like solo heal Uther is the big one, but pretty old school.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun. Nerfs, obviously, Diablo is what we kicked off today with. Muradin, Hogger, Chromie.
Yeah, Muradin probably the one that maybe doesn't deserve it, but we did see that nerf to his avatar, and losing that bit of health is going to hit him. And the way people played the Bronzebeard's Rage and all that sort of thing, the cooldown reduction on Dwarf Toss, it's all adding up to a pretty obvious nerf for just going in there blindly and playing Muradin as you used to. I do think there is a lot of value in that new block, though.
Yeah. I still, it so depends. We talk about this a lot. It so depends on the pilot of the Muradin. But like, I still hit those Muradins where you're just like, what do I even do against this?
Yeah.
And it certainly seems to be what they're trying to meter here with these Muradin changes. But we got light reworks for Falstad and Tracer. I think I agree with kind of where we ended on them. I think you're going to see a lot more Falstad and probably just as much Tracer as you currently are.
We really got to get past that Falstad bug, because then we'll know how dangerous it is for him to want to stack that W quest. Because once he starts being greedy, does he die? Because he is just a birdman. And does that hold Falstad back, but higher scope? I'm not comfortable calling either one of these really buffs at the moment, but I think they are. Maybe I'm a little more comfy. Maybe it's an old couch. You can feel the metal in it, but you know.
I think the Falstad one's gonna be a buff.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that after our full on our conversation there. Alex, Lucio, White Mane, Phoenix kind of fallen into that talent incentivization zone, and then I think we're shrugging on Illidan on what any of this means for him.
Yeah. I don't think it's really going to do anything.
Yeah.
But it's cool we're looking at him.
Yeah. So who do you think the big winner is for you, Kyle?
Oh, the big winner is Lily. Like just for the pure joy of Kai Berries on my team, getting to play Lily, getting to see her run around, double support, all that sort of stuff. I want it to be Mal'Ganis, but that's not the case. Lily's big winner for me.
Yeah. I'm with you on Lily 100%. I would make an argument for Falstad, but agree with you. We got to wait until that bug is sorted out to really see where he falls. But I like based on paper, I think Falstad lands there, and I blame your explanation of your own salt wall for that. So that would be my addition there. Who do you think got hurt the hardest? I would say overall, this is a pretty even-handed nerf patch.
Oh yeah, you line up those heroes that got nerfed, and even Diablo Muradin, as they break even if you factor in some of the stuff that got buffed too. I think they're going to be just fine, though. Personally, I really, really love the auto attack build Diablo. It was very enjoyable, and I'm sad, and that's my big loser. Just a personal one.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings, right? Like I think we both agree that this isn't gonna remove Hogger. I think we go with Muradin because I kind of agree with you. Like, yeah, it seems like they're going after the higher end Muradin players, but when I saw nerfs to Muradin, my initial thought was, why? And I still kind of feel that way. But again, it was relatively tame, so I don't feel super strong about that. Yeah. Well, are we still rating patches? Is that a thing we're doing?
Oh yeah. We got to do it for the internet. Yeah. YouTube needs ratings.
It needs ratings. Okay. What's your rating on this patch, Kyle?
Honestly, I think we're continuing with that get reward now talent philosophy, which I really, really like. I think there's some smart moves shown in that Ragnaros and Alex Straza of updating the hard to play builds. I really like this kind of Tracer stuff they're going after, even the Mephisto quality of life things. So I would give this a 4 out of 5. I think this is really, really solid and doesn't dramatically change the meta for changing its sake. And that's what I want. I like the new toys.
How granular can we get with points?
Oh, you can go you could make it out of 20 or 100 if you really want.
We're going. I like out of 5. It's general, but I think this is like a 3.7 for me.
See, I'd rather you just go for, well, you're doing it out of 5, so the math is a little weird. I guess that's like
3 is 74. Like hard average, and I do think this is above average, but I don't think it's massively above average.
I'd still rather you did out of 100 if you're going to use a 7. Like go for the 0.5. Go for the 0.5.
All right, 3.5 then. 3.5.
There we go.
I respect what it's doing. It's like the band did that big departure from what they're known for album. You respect the hell out of it, but you're not going to listen to it a lot.
So you think this is an acoustic patch?
I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, this is the one where everyone in the band now has a family. They're happily married. They have kids, and they kind of lost their edge, but they're still like interesting musicians.
Spielberg, yeah. Like everything's a little too safe. The handguns are now walkie-talkies.
Yeah. We need to wait for Minority Report to like wake us back up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't like Minority Report, I just don't want to talk to you.
It's all right.
That's harsh. I love Minority Report.
I don't really like the part where they're in the house and she's like divining the future that could have been. And then she yells, "Run," real loud, and he gets caught. Yeah, spoiler.
It's been out for a long time.
The whole house thing is a real bummer.
You can't
for me.
tell because, it's Tom Cruise and he looks the same. I'm dropping
and he runs a lot.
Today's episode. I apologize.
He's a great runner. He's always running in movies, constantly running. Love seeing him run.
And we're always running to the end of the episode now that we've talked about a patch for about 2 hours.
Even though it's like, what, 5'2"?
He is a short man, yes. Kyle running right past my attempt at a segue.
5'7". Nah, end this thing. We're done.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Let us know your thoughts on the patch. I love hearing everything. You can disagree with us. I love hearing people's passionate defenses of certain changes and heroes. And if you do agree with us or maybe have a different angle on things, let us know. Write in itncast@gmail.com. Patrons, you can write us right there into Discord. And don't be afraid to add us if you have a question or a hot take you want to get our eyes on. Speaking of our patrons, we want to thank them for their support one more time. And if you're out there, you're listening to the show, you think, damn, I love those two dorks doing Into the Nexus. Well, you can reward us for our dorkery by going to patreon.com/ITN. This is the best way to support us here. We really would appreciate it. We'd also appreciate it if you check out hotslogs.com. Some good stats over there you can go check out. Huge thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, Chris K., and Sean B. And you can find the whole back catalog of episodes over at amove.tv. So go check that out. Follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast because we will let you know if we change when we're recording. Today we recorded earlier than usual. And you would have been aware of that if you were following ITNcast on Twitter. But before we go, Kyle, where can everyone find you when you're not going into the Nexus?
You can find me over at kylefergusson.com, 2 S's in Fergusson. Links to the Twitter, the Twitch, the D&D shows I do. But at the end here, I want to use my plug time to talk about Hot Slogs yet again because it just crossed 10 million games uploaded, and we updated the rules over there. I say we, no, the awesome developers did it, so let's give them a hand instead. But check out hotslogs.com for all your stat needs.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Thank you for using that promotion for that, Kyle. I'll say follow me on Twitter at Garrett Art, and if you are patrons, look for a new VOD of Broheim, Kyle and I hanging out for about 3 hours in Valheim. I'll be getting that up before the weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah. Dude, that game is fun.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fun fart around game, man. That's it's so relaxing, and I need some relaxation in my life right now. Even if I go, oh, shit, when we see a troll for the first time.
Sure. You got a roll dodge, you know?
Which I'm very bad at, as it turns out. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much again for listening. Until next week, good luck and have fun.
Take care.